Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. If you want to be successful, you have to know about Successonomics, says our guest, Ellie Shefi. Ellie, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Ellie, that term, Successonomics, that's the name of your book. Am I correct?
It is.
Easy to remember, one term, and starts with success, one word. So I think you combine success and what we probably think of as economics, put them together, and it should be easy for us to find. But we want to talk to you, and you start the book off with kind of a rough beginning to life. So would you start off and tell our audience about that?
Absolutely. So I grew up on the border of Long Beach and Compton in Southern California with not a lot of money. I am an abuse survivor, rape survivor, and domestic violence survivor who's actually lived in hiding. I have been homeless and lived in my car and eaten the food that restaurants were throwing away at the end of the night. And then, as if all of that weren't enough, I am a cancer survivor and a medical miracle who has been defying the doctor's death deadlines for over 20 years. So my first death sentence, they said I'd be dead by Christmas of 2000. And I continued to hear that pretty regularly through my cancer journey in 2019. So I've walked through a couple of fires in my life.
My gosh, any one of those, I'm sitting here with my mouth open. I knew because I read your book, but any one of those would have been devastating and enough for anybody to complain, used as an excuse, used as a defense if they were unfortunately in a court case. And you've gone through, I think I counted 5 or 6, and I'm sure when they're that major, like anybody else, you have a few of the little ones that come, you tripped over the curb or the dog bit you or whatever.
Or broke a leg or, those kind of things.
But in your life, that's a mere nothing. You're not going to let that stop you. Yeah. Now, it's so appropriate because the next question, and you talk about this in your book, you say people give up because they tell themselves why they can't do something. Now, you obviously had 6, 7, 8 reasons there why you could have simply said, bing, I'm going to blame it on the rape, the abuse, the violence. I'm living in a car. How can I hold down a job, etc.? And yet, here you are, the author of a book, Successonomics. Talk about that. Tell us why we all default to why we can't do something.
Well, the human brain for thousands of years is wired to keep you safe. It's wired to keep you alive. It is a survival brain. And so often people focus on what they can't do for a couple of reasons. One, because that we're wired to default to the negative. We're wired to default to problems. We're wired to default to dangers. We're wired to default to these things because, well, that could be a bear in the bushes over there and that could eat us. Or, if we went over in that direction, maybe there's no food, and people who went over that direction, they starved to death. And so our brain is wired to be hyper vigilant on these things. So it's kind of our default. Then that is compounded by our beliefs and paradigms. It's compounded by the things we heard as a child. It's compounded by the news that we watch. It's compounded by that teacher who made a flippant comment about, oh, well, clearly you're no good in math. So, you should be an English major. And that happened to stick with you. It's compounded by our religion. It's compounded by social media. It's compounded by all of these external forces that we pick up along the way.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and the beauty of the fact that it's how we're wired and that it's all of these external forces are that we don't actually have to be controlled by them.
And that is the amazing thing. And I'm sure there's so many times you wanted to. It's like most of us. Would you rather take it easy and not do the work, not run the race, get out of the difficult task, whatever that might be at a job, doing the dirty dishes, argue a case in court, or doing the work that nobody else wants to do? How did you get over the mini hills along the way, the bumps in the road, that I can fall back to the old days. I can rely on the fact that I have cancer. I can be sympathetic. How did you get yourself over? Was it prayer? Was it a mantra? Was it a mentor?
I think it was a combination of things. So I learned as a child, as a 10-year-old, I happened to catch a Tony Robbins infomercial. We all remember the days of infomercials. Yeah. And he said a couple of things that really stuck with me as that child. He said, change your story, change your life. And he said, life happens for you, not to you. And he said a couple other things, but those two things really became my North Star. So when he says, change your story, change your life, what he's talking about is that we can't control the external, right? We can't control the events and circumstances that happen in our life. COVID is a perfect example of that. We didn't see it coming. It happened. There's nothing we could do about, quarantine. There's nothing we could do about the shelves being empty at the store. It is what it is. But what we can control is our response, our reaction. We can control the language that we use. We can control the perspective that we hold. We can control the meaning that we ascribe to the events and circumstances. And we can choose whether we live in gratitude. And understanding that even in the midst of all the things that I've gone through, I learned to control the controllables. I learned to, in any moment, say, what can I control? Well, I can control my thoughts. I can control my feelings. I can control the language I use, the meanings I ascribe to things, the perspective I hold, and I can choose whether I want to live in gratitude. And so those have been my absolute North Stars. And that's really been the process that I've used to navigate everything, not only to navigate the challenges, but to build all the success that I've had. It's the same process. I
think you just told us the title of your next book. Seriously, Control the Controllables. I wrote that down. I love it. That's a quote I'm going to put in my book, personal book where I take notes on different shows.
Yeah.
And I think that's an excellent saying, because not only does it do this, and I think you mention it later in the book, but first of all, it gives you an affirmative direction. And it takes your mind off the little things that are annoying, whether your socks are wet or the dog ran around the house with muddy feet or the car has a bump in it or something. You're controlling what you can control. And the rest, we're all going to have them in one form or another. Maybe not today, but mine will come tomorrow. Someone else's will come 2 days after that. Ellie, you have a list of 3 mastery principles. Can you start telling us what those are and how they can help us?
Well, I touched on one, and that's the story that you tell. And is that, are you telling yourself a story that empowers you or imprisons you? Because the reality is you get to choose, and it's a fluid choice. The choice that you made 5 minutes ago, in every single second of every single moment, you get to choose. You get to choose the language you use. You get to choose the perspective that you hold. You get to choose the meaning that you ascribe to things. You get to choose whether you live in gratitude. So you get to choose the story that you tell yourself. Now, why is that absolutely critical? Our body has physiological responses, physiological reactions, biochemical responses to the words that we use. And we've all seen this. So if someone says, "Hey, Bill, how are you today?" And you say, "I'm so tired, and oh my God, I have so much to do, and I don't feel so good, and oh my God, is it already Wednesday? How am I going to do everything?" You can feel your physiology get heavy. You start to feel the embodiment of those words. You feel more overwhelmed. Your heart rate speeds up. Your breathing gets more shallow. You feel more defeated. You feel more overwhelmed. You feel less motivated. Those are responses, physiological responses to the language that we're using. So the words that we use actually become our reality. So conversely, if someone says, "Hey, Bill, how are you?" And you say, "I'm amazing. Today is the best day of my life. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. I am meeting the most incredible people." There's a different physiological reaction.
Ellie, I want you to know, and you've probably seen it as you're talking, my page is already a mess because I have questions for you, but I've written down so many of the things that you've said already, and they're all so good. And in a few words, they can change the direction of the day. And just as you said, so many people, and I do it too, I guess we feel more important if we're doing a lot. Oh, I'm so busy. I have to walk the dog, and I have to mail the mail, and I have to take this to the cleaners. Things that could be done in 3 minutes. And we all say that. I want to know the other success principles, but before we get to that, I just want our audience to know that if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Ellie Shefi, spelled Shefi. Her book is Successonomics. One word, sounds like success and economics together, but it's Successonomics. And we're going to ask Ellie where we can get the book and the website.
So you can get the book on my website. That's the easiest place to find it. My website is ellieshefi.com. You can also find all of my books at booksbyellie.com.
And we're going to ask you that again later on so that if the audience didn't get it down, this is an easy read. I don't think it's even maybe 100 pages, maybe 145 I see as I'm looking toward the end. But it's large print. It's ideas that you're going to get. You can mark it up. And if you want to start on that quick course to success, this is the book. Especially if you're someone who you might say, well, I'm not really a reader. If Ellie could get over those hurdles that she told you about at the beginning of the show, and if you just follow some of the advice she's giving you, you're going to be there in short order. I interrupted you, Ellie. We covered the first mastery principle. Can you talk about the others?
The second is the mindset you hold. And mindset goes kind of hand in hand with the story that you tell yourself, right? We get to choose our mindset. And when we choose a negative mindset or a disempowering mindset, we're putting ourselves behind the 8 ball. So if you choose to use empowering language to adopt a powerful can-do, empowering mindset, then really the sky's the limit. So a key to having an empowering mindset is to ask empowering questions. It's a paradigm. So when we can ask ourselves, what if? What would it look like if I were to be successful in that? What would that look like? What would that entail? How can I be successful in that task? How can I accomplish these things on my to-do list today? I would also like to suggest I get to instead of I have to. So that's a mindset shift. I never say I have to do something, because when you operate from obligation, again, there's biochemical reactions. It's not so great. So if you change that perspective to I get to do all of these things, then you're changing your physiology, which changes your state, which allows you to have a more empowered mindset.
This has been great. Again, my page is a mess, but that's okay. That means you're doing your job and giving us terrific information. And what's the last one?
The last one is the power of your why.
What does that mean?
Your why, that fire in your belly. It's the thing that will get you out of bed when nothing else will. The thing when you are tired and you are weary and you just don't want to go on. It's that fire in your belly that will absolutely make you get up and put one foot in front of the other. It is the single most important thing that you can do is to figure out your why. And your why is not a superficial thing. It's a deep emotional thing. It's your North Star. It's why are you doing the things that you're doing? It's your driving force, your burning desire, the thing that you want more than anything, the thing that is more important to you than anything else. And if you're having a hard time figuring out what your why is, then flip it to what's the worst thing that would happen if I stayed in the status quo?
I love it. I think that's so pertinent. And I think for a lot of us, it's either our children, our grandchildren, our mom, our dad, our wife. Of course, family comes first. And then it might be, the why might be because I want to be the president of the company or a promotion, et cetera, et cetera. You say our story can imprison us. So I guess if we do the opposite and we rely on that story, which obviously you didn't because you started out telling us terrible life events that you could have relied on, we're just basically walking into the prison and throwing the keys outside so we can't get out.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When we embrace a life happens for me, not to me mentality, then we know it's training ourselves. Because like I said earlier, we are wired for the negative. We are wired for survival. So the beautiful thing is that we can train ourselves. It's a practice. It's a muscle that can be developed. It is a practice that we can implement. It's something that we can choose to do every single day. So when you understand that life happens for you, not to you, there's no more victim mentality. There's no more woe is me, pity party. You cannot make a good decision, an empowered decision in a negative state. So you don't want to be in that pity party. Oh my God, why does all this happen to me? That's hopeless. Like you can't do anything with that. However, when you know that life happens for you, you can train yourself to find the good. You can train yourself to find the lesson, find the growth, find the blessing, find the area of opportunity. So when something bad is happening, you can ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What's the takeaway? How can I use this to help myself and then help others?
Most of us, if you said to me, Bill, you're timid or you're not very brave, are you? Or you're not courageous, I would probably fight you. And I think most people would because we don't like to be identified that way. It's a weakness and we don't want that to come up. But you kind of poke the elephant, or what is it, poke the lion when you say, are you a victim or a victor? And I think for a lot of our audience right now, we can ask themselves, which one would the world look at and say you are? Do you want to play the role of victim for another 20 years? Ellie has told you how you're writing your own story. Or do you want to be the victor, or at least start to change that scenario? And that's my next question. How do you recommend to someone to do it? Is it to say it over and over? Is it to put signs on the wall, a vision board?
I did all of the things.
Okay.
So because it is a practice, it's something that you need to do over and over and over. So I put sticky notes. I put sticky notes on the mirror. I put sticky notes on the microwave. I put sticky notes on the dashboard of the car. I put sticky notes on the computer monitors. I put sticky notes on the refrigerator. I put sticky notes on the front door. Anywhere that I would regularly see them, I would write out affirmations. I would write out reminders that life happens for me. I would write out reminders to choose empowering language, to choose empowering perspectives. I started a gratitude practice where in the shower, I still do it to this day, in the shower, I start listing everything I'm grateful for. You know, thank you, God, for this hot water. Thank you, God, for the roof over my head. Thank you, God, that I can feel the floor. Thank you, God, that I have legs to stand. Thank you, God, that I have hands that can wash my hair, all the things. So I just go on a gratitude rant.
Those are wonderful. And I think for our audience, it's something that it's not going to cost you anything more than the pad and the pen to write these things down and the sticky notes. Try it. You want to be successful. You've been listening to our show if you're listening to it now. And this book, Successonomics, is a great book for that. It's simple. It's right to the point. And you can see how enthusiastic Ellie is about it. Ellie, at this point, once again, I want our audience to know if they're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Ellie Shefi, Shefi. The book is Successonomics. And Ellie's going to tell us how we can get the book and the website.
You can get the book on my website, ellieshefi.com. You can also get all of my books at booksbyellie.com.
Easy enough to remember. And again, we're going to ask you one more time before the end of the show. And to our audience, I always recommend just write this down. In 2 or 3 days, you're going to say, what was that book? What was that website? What was that author's name? Just put it on a piece of paper. You'll want to know about it. You'll be telling your grandson or your daughter about it, and you'll have it handy. You talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and motivational people in your book, and we're going to talk to a couple of the other pieces of advice that's given. And one of them is to focus on your unique skills and talents. Why is that important?
It's so important. Focus on the thing that makes you you. Focus on the things that you're good at. So often, I mean, even in school, we are taught to put in our focus and our energy and our time on the things that we're not so good at, right? They tell you, do it over, sharpen those skills. Not if you want to be successful in business and not if you want to be successful in life. It is not about focusing on the things that you don't love or that you're not good at. It's focus on your strengths, focus on your passions, and delegate, eliminate, or automate everything else. If it is sucking your time, if it is sucking your joy, if you're looking at your business and some of these tasks are not moving the needle in your business, you're not able to monetize them, then free yourself up to operate from your zone of genius. It is your zone of genius where the opportunity lies. What are you best at? What do you love? That's why your business will be successful. That's why your clients and your customers will connect with you. If something is sucking your time, automate it, delegate it, or eliminate it so that you are free to move the needle and focus on the things that actually matter in your company and your life.
Who is our team? You talk about setting up a powerful team. Who do you mean by that? Who in our life constitutes our team for success?
So many people. So you can find a mentor or a coach, right? Success leaves clues. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. And pretty much no matter how genius you are, somebody has done some iteration of whatever idea you have. So success leaves clues. You want a coach, you want a mentor, you want to get into a mastermind group. You also want supportive people around you. If you are blessed to have a supportive family, that's a rarity, then you can have your family members on your team. They're your support team. Maybe they keep the home fires running smoothly so that you can focus on your business, whatever the case may be. But so important that you listen and associate yourself with successful people, that you have people on your team, whether it's a volunteer, a college intern, because so many people say, oh, I can't afford to hire people. Find a volunteer, find a college intern, go on Fiverr or Upwork and find someone that you can get for just a couple of hours a week to free up your time and your energy so you can focus on the things that you love. So coaches, mentors, free Facebook communities with like-minded people who are moving in the same direction, people who encourage you, people who support you, people who have complementary skills to yours. You don't want someone that can do the same thing that you can do. You want someone to do the things that you shouldn't be doing so that you can focus on your zone of genius.
So if you're a good accountant, you want the salesperson who can get out there and sell. And if you're a good manager, you want someone who's good in operations, who can get out there and get the people doing what you've directed them to do.
Yep.
Ellie, there's something that's next part is, I'm going to be a shock jock for a few minutes, but this is right out of your book. You tell us that studies show once we decide what we want, the brain helps us bring about life-changing events. I think for most of us, it's like, wow, is that really going to happen? So I want you to talk about it because it's in your book.
Yes. So this is far beyond just, okay, I want it. Right? We all want something that we haven't received. But when the mind thinks that it's already real, that it's already been achieved, you have visualized it, truly visualized it. You have felt what it's like to be behind the wheel of the car. You can actually smell the leather. You're seeing it, you're embodying it, and you're taking action from it. The mind doesn't know whether it's real or imagined. And so many people say, oh, that's not true. Really? Because if you were to imagine, if you were to put yourself back in a really terrifying situation that actually happened to you, and you remember it in vivid detail, and you notice you start to feel it, your physiology changes, your heart rate changes, your mind puts you back in that moment. It's the same thing if you ever have a really vivid nightmare and you wake up and maybe you're sweating, maybe you're breathing more shallow, your heart rate's elevated. It's a nightmare. It wasn't actually happening, but your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain and your biochemistry was reacting as if it were true. It's the same thing. I like to take people through a process of lemons. And we don't have time here to really walk through the process. But if you want to do it on your own after, I want you to really, you close your eyes, imagine you are going out to your front yard and there's this big, amazing lemon tree full of big, beautiful, ripe, fragrant lemons. You walk up to it, you touch the lemon, you hold it in your hand, you smell the lemon. You bring it back inside your kitchen, you take a kitchen knife, you cut the lemon, hold it up, you smell the lemon. You lick the lemon, you hold it up and squeeze that lemon, and the cold drops hit your tongue. If you walk through and take the time to do this, you will notice that you will start to salivate. You will actually smell a lemon and you may even pucker.
Ellie, I love it. I didn't get half the questions to ask yet, but you've given us so much great information. Before we wrap up, I want our audience to know again, tell us the name of the book, where we can get it, and the website.
The book is Successonomics. You can get it on my website at ellieshefi.com, or you can get any of my books at booksbyellie.com.
I want to thank you so much. You've given him so many good tips today, and I want our audience start using these things. You're going to see a change in life. It's worked for Ellie. It's a short book. It's really worth your time and trouble, and you see how much fun it is talking to Ellie. Were you ready to feel empowered? I'm ready to go out and take on the world. Ellie, thanks for being with us today. We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.